I was actually having an interesting phone conversation with Mo Painter the other day, and he was talking to someone, and he was saying charging for quotes absolutely ludicrous. I don't know why you'd ever pay for one. It's such a stupid idea. And people know that as at Refined Space, we charge for a pre-construction service when we go through the pre-construction phase or when we have our initial consultations. Now, the whole paying for a quote thing and not paying for a quote thing is, I feel like they're black and white. They're two completely different things. And I wanted to unpack this because I think the terminology should be used as a pre-construction consultant, because they're apples and oranges. They're two completely different services, and you're not getting charging for a quote is not the same as getting, or being paid as a pre-construction consultant is not the same as getting a free quote from another builder or what so not. So I wanted to run through here. I've just created a graph, a simple table, and I wanted to outline some of the things that you get going through the free quote path, and then going through having a builder on your pre-construction team working through as a consultant and getting all their expertise. Now, please note, charging for a quote and a pre-construction consultant are two completely different services, because I feel it's kind of wrong to charge someone for a quote and give them the same crap piece of paper that they were getting when you were doing a free quote. It's yin and yang. There's two completely different things. And I want to run through you and explain how these work and what some of the differences you get. So create pre-construction consultant and free quote. One of the biggest things I see when people come to building and renovating, I hear probably literally every initial consultation we go to is like, you're one of very few builders that got back to us and your communication was really good. And one of the biggest things I hear is people don't even rock up. They'll ring 2 or 3 builders. They won't even get a call back. They don't even rock up to, or they say they're going to come and they don't even rock up. They don't even have the decency to send them a message to say, hey, we're not, I can't make it this afternoon. I'll come by tomorrow, whatever. So for a start, they don't even get any communication to what's happening, which puts really good faith in, if you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in a builder, to then find out that if this is how it's starting, how is the build going to go? Another one, they might even come to site and they completely ghost you and you never hear from them. Or they say the project's too big, we can't handle it, or the builder's just completely not interested, and they don't even tell you or advise you. You follow them up 2 or 3 times, you never hear from them. If you get past that stage, most of the time you do get a quote, and it's taken months, 2 or 3 months to even get the quote. And then you've gotten it, and it's got very limited information. It's got no detail. You have no idea what type of finishes, fixtures, fittings, what they've allowed for. You have no idea. It's just one piece of paper that says total cost, renovation, X amount of dollars, maybe another page if you're lucky. They're never on time or schedule. They say they're going to start next month, and then next month becomes next month, and the next month becomes the month after. And then you're starting to worry, even if you do have that, you did find a builder, you're going, well, when are they going to start? I've got no idea. They keep telling me it's going to be the month after month, and, really starts to put a bit of a dampener on your whole renovation experience. And then you start the project, and this is one of the biggest things most people that are not even in the building industry, that aren't in the building industry, are aware of this, is the variations that happen throughout a build. And I can go into a whole nother tangent about why this happens and how it happens, but fundamentally it's complete lack of planning as to why all the variations pop up. So you start the project, get all these massive variations, and it just ends up having to be like, you might be spending $300,000 or $300,000, and the total build cost ends up being $400,000 because things weren't selected properly, no thorough house inspections were done, and it gets to a point where you're going, well, how much is it actually going to cost? And even if you did have 2 or 3 prices and you did go with the cheapest builder, it ends up being dearer than the dearer builder that was originally put the cost together for it. Runs completely off schedule is another one. So it runs completely out of time. Like it was a 10-week renovation or build. It ended up taking 16 weeks. There was so many delays. Trades weren't coming. Just nothing was happening. So they spent almost more time with downtime than they were actually building. I said this before, but ends up costing a lot more than first anticipated. And another thing I find is a lot of builders will say, get all your documentation, go see a designer, go basically get all your plans finalized, go spend $10,000+ on some plans, come back to me and I'll price it up. with no budget in mind, no conscious budget in mind, nothing to do, and you end up with a set of plans that end up being twice to what you expected to spend or wanting to spend. And then it becomes a situation where, like, we're going to overcapitalize on the house. It's no longer worth it. Let's just sell the house and find somewhere else. It'll be a lot cheaper. So they're all the issues you get with a free quote. Now, the charging for a quote, which I like to say is acting as a pre-construction consultant, because it's a completely different service, because you can't charge, or I feel you can't charge and do the same shit that you get with a free quote, because it's absolute rubbish. So a couple of things with a pre-construction consultant, and I want to unpack this because there is a massive difference on how this works. Pre-construction consultant, when you first inquire, they should at least rock up on time, have good communication, and get back to you. They also, throughout the design phase, they have a process they would take you through that doesn't just send you off to the designer, come back to me once all your plans are finalized, and then I'll give you a price and away we go. Through that pre-construction phase, they should be able to help you out with some other consultants that are trusted, that they work with. They know how they operate, and they work very similar businesses. They give you an idea through suggestions, which could save you $1,000. Like this example, the first thing that rings to my head, we do our first initial consultation, which is $220. And I went and seen a lady the other day, and they'd had all the plans done. They'd pretty much done a whole refurb of the upstairs of the house, added a deck. And we started discussing around budget. And like in this one meeting, I could have saved them over $10,000 from the first initial meeting I had with them. So they had a $150,000 budget. The plans they had were over $500,000 worth of renovation work almost. And they'd already had final drawings of plans. They had council approval. They had engineering, which in itself, them three things were almost equivalent to $10,000 worth of work. And if that one meeting, that first meeting, we knew that the budget, and we had the discussion around budget, and I think a lot of builders push the budget out of the question because purely for the fact that it's like a bit of a taboo topic. And it's not to be nosy and get in on the budget. It's more about understanding you as a client and what you're wanting, and then finding out what's achievable for the money you have to spend. Because why would you go and spend $10,000 on a set of plans, get everything drawn up, just to find out that it costs, like, it's completely useless, that you no longer can build it. And it can change the dynamic, puts a sour taste in your mouth, when if you could have the discussion around budget and have a builder that has a process that can work out very early on in their stages through their previous projects that they've done, to be able to give you the information and going, hey, we've done similar projects, this is what this project costs, and let's put 5 or 6 of these similar projects together, and we can give you a bit of an indication potentially on where costs are. And if we could do that very early on, before we even go and see a designer, or before we even start investing into plans, it gives you a great indication on where potentially, or the scope of work and the size of renovation that's affordable for you. That's a massive one. One of the other things, having a builder going through the pre-construction process with you, it does take a lot longer, and hands down, I will spend more time with people in the pre-construction phase than I do building with people, purely for the fact that we are literally planning for your renovation. And it's the same thing. Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So if we have a very good planning, if you have a very good planning system that you work through the pre-construction phase, for example, picking all your tiles, picking all your fixtures, your selections, making as many decisions that can minimize the amount of time frame blowouts, the amount of cost blowouts throughout your project, we can do that in the very early stages. It dramatically affects the build process. It dramatically affects the cost of the contract. And if we can lock all them things in prior before starting, it gives you as a client a great deal of confidence with the builder you're using, to make sure that while you're going through that process, you can be comfortable when you sign a contract with them that you're not going to have a $50,000 variation blow. And to be honest, 9 out of 10 renovations that we do now with clients are purely any variations that end up happening. 9 out of 10 times they're purely owner request. So we're trying to minimize this so it gives you certainty and confidence as you're going through the building process. One of the other things is, we just talked about minimizing the risk. The only other one is thorough site inspection. This is a huge one, and this goes back to variations as to why variations pop up. Things like you're doing a bathroom, what's the existing structure like? For example, bathrooms tend to leak. There's a lot of water damage that can be done to the structure of the building. And if the building's accessible underneath and you can get in and have a look, or if your builder does know that there's a bit of water damage, they can allow for this allow for this in their costing, so that when you go ahead with doing it, you're already prepared and you already know that there's going to be potentially some issues, there's going to be some dramas with rotten timber or something like this, so that once you start building and renovating, you can be sure that your builders allow for this. And look, we can't see everything. We can't see everything until the sheets are off, but we can have a pretty good indication of what's there. So things like rotten floorboards, is there anything that's damaged? Is there any electrical upgrades that need doing? Is there plumbing that needs attention before we start moving ahead? And if we can identify all these issues, we can then come back to you and advise you the costings and what we need to do to rectify these issues before signing a contract with a builder, and then figuring out all these extra costs that are on top. And yes, that generally makes us as a builder a little bit dearer than the other builder, because they have not factored in for any of the stuff and they haven't even assessed the situation. They might have just quoted straight off the plans, and then it's they go from there, and then as soon as you start signing the contract, bang, all these extra things pop up. The other thing, I just said this before about going through the design and construction consultants, but working with you through the designer or an architect or an engineer, depending on what type of project you have. The builder's really focused on cost and buildability. Like I remember specifically a design meeting we were in with a set of clients, and they had a walk-in robe and they had a wall they wanted to move 300 mil. Now, would have made the walk-in robe a lot more functional, but to move that wall, we then had to put structural supports. We had to remove the aircon off the wall. We had to put stiffening beams in. So this moving the one wall 300 mil was then going to cost upwards of $10,000 to make that one decision. And having a builder sitting in with that meeting, the benefit of things like this is they can go, hey, we can do that, but are you prepared to spend X amount of dollars? Because it's not just a simple, let's just move a wall frame over and away we go. So I bang on about this all the time, because I purely think that there is no better way than going through a construction phase, and there's no better way of preparing for a renovation than in the pre-construction phase and having a builder work alongside you. You know, we've worked through the process. We've charged upwards of $2,800 for a process like this, and I can guarantee you, literally within the first few meetings, we can easily save tens of thousands of dollars we've done with clients in the past, purely from smart design decisions, from buildability, from going through thorough site inspections and problem solving through these situations to start finding out what other options do we have, rather than trying to figure it out once we start building and then you find out, bang, here's all these extra costs. So yeah, something to think about. I know this process is not for everyone, but what I've found of doing this over and over again with clients is that the time scheduling and moving through projects runs so much smoother. We're a lot more efficient. We're in and out of your home a lot quicker. It's better for you. It's better for us. Everyone wins. So if you have any comments or questions about this process, please chuck them in the section below, because I'd be quite interested to know people's thoughts on this topic. And yeah, and I just want to release some education about this, because there's a very different process from getting a free quote and paying for a quote, because they're definitely not the same thing.